Hi, folks, and welcome to our Sunday morning Samoflange. Yes, solo. When you hear no theme song, it's solo. I kind of miss the theme songs, I'll be honest. I almost decided to play one, but I said, no. It's just me. Again, maybe just me for the month, sadly. Unless I can grab Mikey on a free day, we'll see. However, this is one that, tech gadgets that meant a lot back in the day, and are laughable now. I remember Benjamin didn't understand this one. I tried to pitch this one to him a year or so back. He didn't get the point of it and didn't want to do it. I pitched it to Mikey. He was all for it, and of course he can't do it right now. This had actually, and I know Wes from Princeton Universe listens. Wes, this probably would have been a good one for you. Maybe you can give me yours on Princeton Universe sometime. But this is the top 5 tech gadgets from back in the day that really impressed me. That's not going to be the title probably of this podcast, but we'll see. There are 5 things, and I put them in order. Did I put them in the order that they came out, that they were created? Maybe. Hold on. Oh, my Lanta. Maybe I did. I don't know. 1 and 2 are pretty close. Wow, I didn't even mean to do that. I just realized that 5 and 4 came out long after 3, which came out after 2 and 1. Ha! Huh. So I did not do that on purpose. I was just, maybe I was thinking timeline wise, but I ranked them differently too. They're all ranked differently. I thought of 5, and usually I stop at 5, and then I look. I looked online. I couldn't find anything else that I'd add to this. If you have one after this podcast, please let me know in the comments below. But here we go. I'm excited to talk about these. I can talk. This is one that I'm glad. Usually I hate doing solo because I have to cover 30 minutes on my own. This one, pretty positive. I can cover 30 minutes. All right, here we go. Number 5, easily online banking. Everyone has it now. If you don't have it, you're an idiot. But online banking to me was the coolest thing. It was the coolest thing to me when you could finally go online and check your balance and not have to go to the bank, not have to call them constantly and figure out, hey, what do I have? You had to balance a checkbook. Remember, I don't know if anyone remembers these days, but you had to balance your checkbook to make sure you had enough. But constantly you'd call the bank and say, hey, how much do I have in my account? Or you have to go in there. There's a password you had to read, or if you were called on over the phone. But it was constant. You'd go to the bank, sometimes just to check and see how much you had. And then you'd go from there. Sometimes it was to balance your checkbook because you realize, oh man, I don't remember what those 2 last checks were for. That was the other thing. Sometimes you didn't write down, the copies. Sometimes they had the carbon copy of checks under each one, but really quickly. Some people stopped doing that. And sometimes you couldn't read the carbon copy if it wasn't, like sometimes I wouldn't press down hard enough and couldn't read what the carbon copy said. So then you have to go to the bank and go, hey, check number whatever, what was that to? How much was it for? Because you had to know how much, you didn't know where that money went. And that you could just, and I mean, back in the day, online banking was mainly, I think you could do like up to 5 transfers a month, from savings to checking to savings. And then you could always check your balance at any time and see see the checks that you paid for. Because it was check or cash, right, back then. Debit cards were around too, and I guess you could see your debit card purchases. But usually you paid cash and check a lot. But either way, and maybe I should have said the debit card. Now that I just said that was a big invention that I could not wait for the debit card to stop carrying cash. And I still hate places that take cash only because I never have cash on me. But I want to say when I saw online banking, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to save me so much time, so many trips. In fact, I stopped balancing my checkbook anymore because I knew I didn't have to, because I could always look online and not have to worry about calculating and whittling that number down. Excuse me. So it actually worked out really well for me at least. But online banking, my number 5. Number 4. Number 4 is very simple, and I remember this being a big deal, was a Palm Pilot. Cell phones, the basic cell phones were out. Palm Pilots was basically what a cell phone became later on. You had the little, I don't know what it was called, the pencil thing, the plastic pencil, and you use that, the stencil, I don't know, is that what it's called? I can't remember. Stylus, that's what it was called, Stylus, got the name. and you'd scroll up and down, and it just kept a bunch of data, like your phone book, your addresses. That's mainly what it had in there. If you need to call someone up, you'd look it up on your Palm Pilot. Um, I remember someone had all their dates. Their calendar was on there. What they had, you had to look it up and see what you had on your calendar. You put lunch dates on there. It was basically, part of what a cell phone would eventually mold into. But having one was just awesome, right? You could store all this data. You could put notes in it. And I remember one lady was taking a class. I was working for the bank at the time, and one of my teammates, her mom was in this class, and she said, "Matt, my mom is having the worst problem with, was it a math class? I can't remember. It was a math class or logic class or something like that." And I was like, "Sure, I'll help her." And she would just bring the homework to her daughter, who would bring it to me, and I just did all her homework. And it was like math puzzles in a way that she had to figure out, or logic puzzles. And I had a blast. You don't know this, logic puzzles and stuff like that. Dude, I took a logic class in high school. I remember I was so good, the teacher thought I was cheating. Like, he would separate me from the group, watch me the whole time, and then look at me after I'd think through it and put the answer down. He went, "I don't know if you're just lucky or you're really that smart." And he didn't mean it as an insult too. He just honestly could not figure out if am I just getting lucky with the answers, or has this guy really got a brain? It didn't offend me either, by the way, because I was really shocked. I was not really the straight A student. But for some reason, the logic kind of math puzzle, train traveling this way, another train traveling this way, when do they meet, what's the dissection? I don't know what that's called, but I can figure that out. I like figuring, or, how do you get 12 eggs in 3 baskets with no repeat? I don't know, whatever the math is. I can't think of what it is. But I always love figuring those out. Now, these took me all night. I had nothing to do in my life. And if I recall, this was the moment in my life that I didn't have any friends. Let me explain. I believe a lot of my friends had moved away. I know Wes had moved to Memphis after a short time. I didn't have him. I didn't have all my friends had moved to Baton Rouge. It seemed like all of my best friends had moved to Baton Rouge. And so I didn't really have that many friends and didn't do that much. I didn't go out that much or anything. And so sitting at home doing these logic puzzles was just fun. Yes, what a nerdy life I live. I get it. But I had fun. Well, she got a straight A out of that class. And she felt awful because she said, "Wow, I didn't really do any of the homework. Matt did." And so she told her daughter to ask him what he wants. Well, I wasn't going to take anything, but her daughter already knew. I kept talking about getting a Palm Pilot because I really thought those were cool. She went out and bought me a super nice Palm Pilot and brought it to me in the bank, hugged me, thanked me. I gave her a straight A. I get a Palm Pilot. She says, and I did not want to take it. I was so embarrassed. Like, "Ma'am, no. Because those things cost, I want to say, a couple $100. But she was just so over the moon for her A that she wanted to give me that. And buddy boy, I tried to use that for everything. Any ideas I wanted to write in, you could get the stylus and flip it. That's how you touch the screen and it'd move. And I thought that was before touchscreen, but I thought, man, this is so cool. And you better believe I brought out my Palm Pilot to everyone. To everyone. Let me make a note of that. Is that a Palm Pilot? Yes, it is. I mean, I was super proud of it. Super proud of that Palm Pilot. And I remember eventually when it died, I can't remember what happened, but I may have dropped it or something. I was so upset. And I bought another one. Right, maybe a year or two before they were going out of style. Because I remember the second one I bought was really cheap. And I was like, oh, I got a good deal on it. But they were kind of going out of style, I think, at the time. But I loved it. Now, I don't know whatever happened to the other Palm Pilot. Maybe it's in a box somewhere up in my attic. I really would love to see it again. And I would love to use it again, for old time's sake, show what it did. But I probably just threw it away because after a while, your cell phone basically did everything a Palm Pilot did. But man, when that Palm Pilot came out, it was magic. It was magic in your hand. What do you do with it? Not much. But the things you did, but the things you could do. So much fun. All right, so number 3, another big one here, the car phone. God bless America. When car phones started coming around in the early 90s or mid 90s, for me at least, in our small town, I remember they had to drill a hole into the roof of your car, put the longest metal antenna in your car. It looked really weird. Back then, you knew you could spot someone who had a car phone because they had a huge metal antenna. Now, everyone had antennas back then to pick up radio, which is really weird. Now, antennas have disappeared. I don't think I ever had. Did I ever have a car with an antenna? I don't think I did. No, I drove some that had antennas. Cars had antennas all the time. And that's kind of funny. We don't have those anymore. I don't know. Maybe my first car, a 91 Dodge Spirit, had to have had an antenna. And probably the other one. But I remember some antennas you could flip down. You had to push the antenna down before you went through the car wash, or it'd rip the antenna off. And you had to buy a new antenna, because I remember that happened to a lot of people who went through those automated car washes. There weren't that many of them back in the day. But if you went through one, you better put your... I remember some people got soaking wet because they'd remember, oh no, my antenna. And they'd have to, you could push it down or take it off or whatnot. And they'd be soaking wet because they didn't want that antenna to break. That was your radio, baby. But radio was the thing there. But you had to get a giant antenna in your car if you wanted a cell phone. Because then it was a bag. This car phone was a bag. Super thick. Looked like a briefcase. You'd open it up, press each one of the buttons. But you had to press the green button to hit send. And, man, if you had a car, phones were in movies all the time. Someone in a limo was on a phone. Or a big blocky cell phone. That was the thing, to have a phone in your car. But not practical. In a small town where I lived, not many people had a car phone. But boy howdy, I remember the first time. It's clear as a bell. I remember the first time I ever used a car phone. This is back in the day where payphones were everywhere. If you didn't have a calling card, you didn't have a quarter, you were out of luck. But your parents would drop you off. My parents dropped me off at a baseball game and then would go run other errands, because you were playing baseball. They'd come back and pick you up at your assigned game. But sometimes games didn't go an hour, or an hour and a half. Games went pretty quick if the team sucked, or you had the skunk rule, And something like that happened to our team, and we got finished way early. So it was going to be another 30 minutes before my mom was even thinking about coming to pick us up. And it was dark, and we must have finished maybe an hour. I don't know. One game before us got finished early, so we started playing, and we got finished early because they want to shut that thing down. So they were shutting down the lights. I did not have a quarter to call my mom to tell her we were done. And I was thinking, crap. And you did. Kids would sit there in the dark sometimes waiting because they'd shut the lights out. They didn't care about no kids back in the 90s. Get out of here. They were still living it like it was the 80s. We don't care about kids. Shut off the lights. Parents will pick them up later. They should have stayed for the game. But every so often you come across a kind parent who's like, hey, do you want me to give you a ride home? Now remember, there was still no way in the 90s. Not everyone had cell phones. In fact, a lot of people did not. And so if they were going to take you home, do you have a quarter to call your mom and dad? If not, they'd go give you a quarter, and you'd call your mom and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so is taking me home. So I remember the kid said, hey, do you want to drive home with my dad wants to know if he can take y'all home. And I was like, sure. I said, but I don't have a quarter to call my mom. I said, does your dad have any change? And he said, well, Dad has a car phone. He said he could use that. And I was like, wait, what? And see, if you had a car phone, in my opinion, that meant you were rich. So I thought he was rich. And I was like, oh my gosh, no one told me you were rich. And he had a car phone. I remember he was, he had his own business. And I can't remember what he was doing. But, I mean, he had the big giant antenna in the back. I saw it when I got up to the car. I was like, oh, yeah, he does have a bag phone in there. So he said, okay, you pick it up. And remember, car phone things were super expensive calls. And he goes, you press this. I think maybe he had to press the power on button or something. Maybe you press green to turn it on. I can't remember. But I pressed each one of the buttons. He said, okay, now hit send, which was the green button. I hit it, and it started dialing. And I remember telling him, it's dialing. Like I was so excited because he took off. We told him where he lived. We told him where we lived, and he started driving toward it. Oh, back then, no GPS either, brother. You knew the town like the back of your head. And if you didn't know the town, you say, hey, what street is that off of? Oh, you go down Forsyth and just turn on Auburn and then head up, go on 3rd. And then everyone knew where they lived. They knew the roads. So he knew the roads and he was going to take us there. So while we're pulling out, the car's ringing and we're driving down the road. I am like pumped. I'm feeling like I am every 80s movie I've ever wanted to be. I needed the champagne, maybe the skylight open. And that's another thing. My first car had a skylight. And to be honest, that's what sold me on it. I was like, dude, this car has a skylight, a sky window or whatever, skylight. Is that what it's called? Skylight? I said, I got to have this. And so, and I remember it could you could open up. You could just have the sun coming down. I thought, man, a skylight's so cool. But a 91 Dodge Spirit was a piece of trash. Car was a piece of junk. Anyway, at least it had a skylight, right? But and now my new car that I have has a skylight. I'll talk about my new car if I have some time after this podcast. But anyway, so it's dialing. My mom picks up and she's like, "Hello," and I'm like, "Mom, it's Matt." And she's like, "Oh, hey." And I was like, "Mr. Brewer's taking us home," and I'm on a car phone. I had to say, I was like, "I'm on a car phone. I'm on his car phone." I was like, just so happy. I probably my voice as a kid, my voice even cracked as it went higher. I was so excited, and my mom goes, "Get off that phone. It's like $2 a minute." And so she hung up on me. She didn't want to pay that person to pay for that call, and it probably was super expensive. So she hung up immediately on me. The whole call took about 20 seconds. It was literally me, "Hi, Mom. Hey, Mr. Bruce, take us home. I'm in a car phone." And then my mom just shut me down. It was probably the whole conversation was like 15 seconds. But boy, I felt cool. In fact, if he would have told me, "Hey, can you call my wife and tell her I'll be late?" I would have said, "Yes, sir. I'll make any call you want to, sir. I am expert of the car phone. Please let me talk." I wanted to talk to someone else. And I felt so cool. Because I was part of that car phone. Now, there is no such thing as a car phone. I'd be shocked if a car came with a car phone. That'd be funny. I'd actually like that, actually. But everyone has a cell phone now. Now, speaking on the phone in a car, no one would be excited about. But if you were to pull someone out of the early 90s, heck, even the mid 90s, they would be blown away that we'd be talking to people on a car phone. Or now your car phone is wired to, wireless Bluetooth to your car. You're talking through the car audio to someone. That'd blow them away. That's the future, baby. Right there. Still no high-speed internet, kid, but at least we have the bag phone there. All right. Number 2. I guess phones were on the menu here. Number 2 is the cordless phone. Cordless phone, I remember when my mom bought the first cordless phone. By the way, also, back, just sidebar conversation. When a car antenna broke off, it made for a great sword. Just saying. To play with, made for a great sword. Hurt like the dickens if you got slapped on the butt with one, because that was the other thing you do. And it hurt so bad, but we would always slap people with it. It was like a whip. But you'd use it as a sword. And it was the coolest sword, better than any stick you could possibly have. Okay, just wanted to say that. If you use an antenna as a sword, let me know in the comments below. All right, moving on. Cordless phone. Remember when we got the first cordless phone? By the way, they also came with heavy metal antennas. You could bring it, you pull it out and then press it back in when you were done. At least the phone we had. This is back in the 80s, probably late 80s. But Mom used to have this cord. Dad got her an extension cord. It was like a 6 feet stretching cord. It probably was 10 feet, 12 feet. I don't know. It got all around the kitchen. That way Mom could talk to someone and still walk around the kitchen, get the stove, get to the fridge. I remember it was probably maybe 6 feet because maybe that kitchen was a little smaller. But I remember she'd have to reach for the stuff in the fridge and still hold the phone. So maybe it was just 10 feet. I don't know. Either way, Dad came home. I remember the exact day Dad came home with the cordless phone in a box. Mom unpacked it. I had no idea what black magic made that phone work. How can a phone work without a cord? We all knew if you pulled the cord from the phone, you got disconnected. So how can a phone function? All of our other house phones around the house had cords. By mom and dad's bed, they still had a cord phone. They had a rotary phone back in the day. But the push button phone was always cool. You push the buttons. I remember the last cordless phone my mom and dad had was a yellow phone. It was pale yellow, like 70s yellow. And when you picked up the buttons were really thin and tall, but they glowed. So when you press the one, it'd glow, and it would go dark when you pressed it. So it stopped glowing to let you know you pressed that button. But they replaced that phone with the cordless phone. It was brown with wood or beige with wood paneling. This is the 80s, folks. Everything had to have wood paneling on it. But anyway, you pick that thing up. That metal antenna was super heavy. The first call my mom made, I remember this clearly, was to our neighbor across the street. She went, "Hey Cheryl, how you doing?" She went, "Guess what? I'm outside." And she goes, "Yeah, Steve bought me the new cordless phone. Woo, woo, woo." She could go outside now, only to her front porch or back porch, and talk to people now. And sit on the back porch, sip coffee, do whatever she wanted to. Mom, blown away by this. Me, long before the Verizon guy was even born, I did this. I did the whole "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" Because it was 25 feet, if I recall. I remember I could walk down the driveway, but the moment I got to the road, the static started getting really loud. Shh. And so I remember I was standing in the road, yelling and waving at him out of his way because he didn't have a cordless phone. Waving at him, he was looking at me out the window. I was waving. I was like, "Dude, I can hear you. Can you hear me?" And he's like, "Yeah." It's very staticky. But I thought that was just amazing. I had no idea. I said, it must be like a walkie-talkie. Do they still make walkie-talkies? I guess not, now that you have cell phones. Walkie-talkies were a cool thing to have back in the day. Man, if you were a kid with a walkie-talkie, the other cool thing is, if you had a walkie-talkie, we had walkie-talkies, and man, I should have put that as antiquated technology last week. I forgot about the walkie-talkie. Walkie-talkies are really cool. They could get, if you had kid walkie-talkies, but I remember one time we had these walkie-talkies, and we talked to each other in the car. But if you were driving, you could also pick up radio signals from truckers and talk to them. They could hear you. And then the coolest thing was there was a kid in another car with a walkie-talkie, and I guess it was the same brand or something, or maybe not. We could talk to him. We started talking to him. It was the coolest thing. We only had I remember I had a pair of black walkie-talkies we thought were awesome. We had some cheesy yellow ones that my grandmother bought me that were really kind of kiddie looking, but they worked. And walkie-talkies were always a cool thing to get. But yeah, walkie-talkies. We talked to each other all the time on walkie-talkies and just had just a blasty blast. A blasty blast. But the thing is, though, I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, cordless phone. I thought the cordless phone was like a walkie-talkie at the time. I said, that's got to be what it's like. It's got to be what it's like. It's got to be like a walkie-talkie. But again, what dark magic was this that created the cordless phone? I mean, nowadays, again, I think about my mom being so excited that she was talking to the neighbor while being outside. Fast forward, Mom, 40 years later, 30 years later even, she would be like, "Wait, what? This is an everyday thing? Everyone is on walkie-talkies now?" Because I think that's what we call them, is walkie-talkies, these cell phones. We wouldn't know what they meant. You really want to fish out of water story. That's exactly what people would be thinking. It's like, wait. In the future, everyone has smaller walkie-talkies that are more clear and not as stacky, and you can talk over someone now. I swear that's how I'd probably describe it back then. But I think about how excited my mom was and how I would just thought that was just the most amazing thing, But yeah, I should have thought about walkie-talkies. Maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't put that in because those were big back in the day. But I always understood how walkie-talkie worked. That wasn't like big technology to me. So never mind what I said earlier. But I will say this: the cordless phone. Oh, and I remember that extension, by the way, that extension cord that Dad got her years ago. We would wrap each other up in that. We'd stretch it out, piss Dad off. But Mom already stretched it out, moving around the kitchen. But we would just try to wrap it around. We try to mummify each other, and you could wrap it around a good many times around us. But I remember we used to do that all the time. We used to wrap it around my little brother, wrap it around me, put it over your eyes, your mouth, your nose, from head to foot. You start at the feet first, obviously, and we'd act like we were trapped. We were trapped by a giant spider or something. Back then, kids, we didn't have much TV, folks. We didn't have many video games or tablets or whatever. We had our imaginations, and we used them on everything. So the telephone cord is a spider web, or Spider-Man has trapped the bad guy and we're the bad guy, or just stuck in some kind of trap trying to get out, alien trap trying to get out. That's what that giant telephone cord was for. Booyah. I know they still do cordless phones. I saw an extension to a cell phone that made it look like a cordless phone. I was like, funny novelty, but it really just shows you how far we've come along and how no one really wants that except it's a gag gift. All right, so no phones. No more talking about phones. Number one is easy for me, and I really thought this was wave of the future. And if anyone had one, you were instantly cool as well. Back in the 80s, it was the calculator watch. Oh my word. That it had all those buttons that beeped when you pressed them. That you could do math on your wrist, or write hello upside down for someone to say hello to them, to someone at your school. I remember I had the calculator watch, and I went to school thinking I will never fail math again. Not thinking that the buttons deet every time you press them. So here we are getting our first math quiz, and my teacher probably heard deet, 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 deet. And instantly rose from her desk, walked around, and I put my hand back down. I still had my watch, my calculator watch. But I had it on my right hand, and she was walking down to my left. But then she was looking. I didn't hide the watch. I just had it turned, not facing her. But she knew exactly what it was. She grabbed my wrist, looked at the watch, took it off. She said, "You can have this after school." No calculator watches. I thought I had it made on Easy Street. My math was going to be an easy A from here on out. But I don't know. I think my parents maybe gave me that watch a long time ago. Maybe that's what it was. But I just thought that thing was the coolest thing. I'd try to do math on it whenever I could. I was like, hold on. Let me see how many bottles you have and how many bottles he has. You have 3 and Tommy has 7 over there. That is 3. Deet, deet, deet. We have 10 bottles total. And they're like, yeah, Matt, you're sounding more like a Sesame Street episode. But dude, I wanted to do the calculations on my calculator watch. Super sweet. Absolutely lovely. The calculator watch is just, I mean, probably today, I stopped wearing watches a long time ago when I got a cell phone, a smartphone, and I realized, what's the point? Like, I used to want one because what if your cell phone dies or whatnot? But to be honest, I'll just ask someone else the time, if my cell phone dies, which it rarely ever does. So I don't want to watch. Now, I know a few people who wear watches. I respect you for wearing watches. I think that's antiquated technology at this time. I had lovely watches back in the day. Watches I loved that would break, the band would break or the little gadget, whatever, would break on it. But nothing beat my calculator watch. I thought my calculator watch was the coolest thing, even though I had some wild, crazy watches back in the day. And some watches I never wore because I thought they were so pretty. I remember I had an episode 1 Phantom Menace watch. I'd won it. And it was a beautiful picture of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. I never wore it once. I don't even know where it is. It's probably lost, thrown away. I know I don't have it anymore. But I remember I never wore it because I just thought it was so beautiful. Why didn't I wear it? I should have worn it. But I did have a lot of watches back in the day. And I did like digital watches too because it was just easier to tell the time instead of looking at the big hand and the little hand. Anyway, folks, let me know top 5 antiquated technologies that blew you away back in the day. I really am interested to hear if there's something that I missed Because not that I did the biggest, deepest research on this, but let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time on Saturday morning Samoflange.